Thanks for tuning into a special game day edition of Another Dolphins podcast. We have Thursday night football on the agenda as the Miami Dolphins try to upend the Buffalo Bills. It's been a little while since we've talked to you guys, and we're so excited to get into this game. There is plenty of news to talk about, injury updates, some stock up, some stock down. But before I get to all that, Joshua Houtz, check your pulse if you're not fired up. It's Bills game day, brother.
Yeah, and it's just Brian Cox meme all week long, right? Just the middle finger, the double bird salute. That's how it's been, at least for the last few days. But, dude, this game could not come at a better time. We're all ready to see what the Dolphins can do. Can they dethrone the AFC East juggernauts, their big stepbrother? Time will tell. I can't wait, Jake. How have you been? How's your week been going? I know it probably lags a little bit, right? As this Thursday night game is just days away. It just takes forever to get there.
You think so? It kind of feels like it's a whirlwind. Like last week, we had a bunch of different podcasts out for you guys. We had a Jacksonville Jaguars beat writer for you. This week, it feels like the rug has just been pulled out of my feet. The sands of time are just slipping away. And Josh, how does that impact a game like the Buffalo Bills? Last night, I was on Finn's TV with our friends Sammy, Steve, and Matt. And I was just kind of thumbing through Miami's past with the Buffalo Bills. And like, I get so jealous thinking about those 1970 Dolphin teams. Josh, they went 20-0 against the Buffalo Bills. And then as I look at the 2020s, I believe the Miami Dolphins are 1-8 against the Buffalo Bills. So what does that short week do, especially this early in the season? How does that impact how Miami prepares for the biggest juggernaut that this team has had to face in the last 5 years?
That's $1 million question, and one that we might not know the full answer to until tomorrow when we get, the last injury report and things like that. But I think it's going to hamper both teams. This isn't going to be that same slugfest that we're, used to. But at the same time, these teams are probably as healthy as they've been for a long time, right? So you can look at it that way, but also look at that short week. You just got taken down to the wire against the Jacksonville Jaguars. We know the Bills almost lost to the Cardinals as well. So both teams had a little bit of a hamper in their road in that week one matchup. Both want to get on top of this division by beating the other in week two on prime time. So it just feels like the perfect storm for the Dolphins to maybe pick up an early season win and steamroll in, carry that 2-0 record into the next week. But it's so hard when you look at what Josh Allen's done since he came to Buffalo to ever root against, or I'm always rooting against the Bills, to ever even, question whether or not the Bills can hang with the Dolphins.
Josh, I see a lot of people saying this is an opportunity for Miami to steal one from the Buffalo Bills. Is this a steal scenario? I don't know if this is a steal scenario as much as it is step up to the plate and just hit the ball out of the park. I think Miami has a real opportunity here. And I don't like the idea of this is a sneaky opportunity for Miami. The way these teams are constructed, the way that you look at the Buffalo Bills secondary, how it's kind of dissolved in the last year, and these could all be famous last words, it doesn't necessarily feel like a steal one scenario as much as it does a statement scenario. And you mentioned that this is a scenario, I said it 3 times in a minute. I think I deserve an award for that. But this is a total over-under that started at 48.5. It's actually climbed up to 50.5. When you think about the short week hampering both sides, is it more of a defensive issue or an offensive issue, do you think?
I think it'd probably be more of a defense, right? I mean, at least that's the way I'm looking at it, especially with Josh Allen. I mean, whether you love him or hate him, I mean, the guy's still a top 2 quarterback. So no matter what, as long as he's out there, they're going to be hard to stop. And then we know how much Mike McDaniel's offense, even last week, we're sitting here talking about Tua might have had a, okay game, still threw for 338 yards, still led the league in passing. It's just funny how, how quickly they can turn that switch from, a couple missed opportunities to just, a firework display. So I'm thinking it's going to be offense. I guess Vegas might agree with me, but we're saying that it'll probably be a defensive struggle, 6-3 or something. I don't know. As long as Dolphins win, though, I don't care.
Divisional rivals, these guys hate each other, throw out the record books, all those cliches. Josh, I absolutely love it here. And that's kind of how you got to think about this Dolphins versus the Buffalo Bills matchup. Let's get into a couple injuries here. Starting at the top, Josh, arguably the most important. Raheem Mostert did not practice throughout the week with a chest injury. God, man, it must have been like the first quarter. I think I saw him kind of trying to shake off an injury. I think he was floating around for most of the game, but he did not practice throughout the entire week. He is out for Thursday night. And Josh, just because it speaks to that talking point, Jevon did not practice Monday, did not practice Tuesday with an ankle injury, but he returned on Wednesday. He was limited. He is questionable for Thursday night against the Buffalo Bills. So Josh, considering Mostert is out, considering that Jevon is banged up, is bell cow a word we can use?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure we can use that word quite yet, but with the way that Jeff Wilson was running, he kind of almost looked like
Yeah.
he could be that bell cow, right? So I know they're gonna get Jalen Wright more involved, most likely with Mostert out. We're all getting excited for that, but they let Jeff Wilson in, the most critical time in that game. Had to come in and he stepped up to the
Mhm.
plate. So for all the months I sat there and said, we should try to get a pick for Jeff Wilson. 1 week in, an injury has already taken out Raheem Mostert, may have even taken out Devon Achane, and now we're relying on Jeff Wilson again. So crazy, crazy, crazy times. But I'm excited to see what the rookie Jalen Wright can add to that backfield. But ultimately, it all comes down to Devon Achane to me. You mentioned it being a game time decision. The dude looked like an absolute game changer last week, caught 7 to 7 targets. Didn't really quite have the impact in the run game, but he's a huge playmaker. He's up there with the Tyreek Hills and Jalen Waddles. And I think that's crazy to say after just one season, right? You can see what type of difference maker he is. I hope he's okay. I hope he's out there because we need that guy for this Bills matchup. But intrigued by Jeff Wilson. What about you, Jake?
So Devon Achane was practicing Wednesday, it looked like, and he was moving pretty well. So Josh, you do wonder if this is a scenario where the Miami Dolphins are just being extra safe. And you start to mix in the fact the Bills are also dealing with some injuries. Nickel cornerback Tron Johnson is actually going to miss this game. He did not practice throughout the week with a forearm injury. How does Miami take advantage of a situation like this, Josh? Obviously, you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. These Sean McDermott defenses have done a great job of really making the Dolphins uncomfortable, making them work for the yards. So when you consider that the slot cornerback for the Buffalo Bills is going to be out, we know that, the Dolphins know that, and the Buffalo Bills know that. So let's just be under the impression that instead of where they're lining up on the field, let's look at Buffalo's third option as a defender. Who would Miami's third option be as a receiver? Because after 1 week, Josh, and you're talking about Jeff Wilson and how quickly we turn. I try to stay a little slow and I don't try to throw you under the bus here, but my God, I think 1 week of Braxton Berrios was enough for me. I don't think you can really trust him to be a number 3 option, an option to help move the offense. So with Devon Achane limited, who do you trust to be that number 3 against the Buffalo Bills defense that might be hindered in terms of depth handling a third option?
Who do I trust? That's the $1 million question. I'm not sure I trust anyone right now. I mean, I think Malik Washington is he officially out for this game? I think Malik
Yeah.
Washington is officially out. So we were all I admittedly was hyping the hell out of him. So who do I trust as that number 3 option? I mean, if it's Achane would be the guy I'd immediately say, but he still sounds like he could be in limbo. So third option, maybe can we bring River Craycraft back? I mean, for me, maybe it's hopefully Jonnu Smith. I mean, I don't know, man. You're picking at straws there, and if Devon Achane's out, so I'm hoping it's Devon Achane. After that, you're just praying someone steps up that you can take advantage of their nickel being out because, like you said, it's not Braxton Berrios.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I think the interesting matchup is going to be. And if you want to, win your FanDuel, if you want to hit big on a lottery ticket, it's really decoding who that third option is going to be if someone like Devon Achane is limited. Josh, considering how often the Dolphins love to use 2 running backs, how does the formula change with Raheem Mostert out and maybe Devon Achane in? Because we hear it a lot from the fantasy guys. Jeff Wilson was the guy. Jalen Wright's taking some time. He was inactive for last week's game against Jacksonville. But when you look at the game script, I mean, Jeff Wilson was absolutely awesome. He led the team in rushing yards. It all came in the fourth quarter. The idea of using a fresh Jeff Wilson against a wilted defense that's been out in that Miami sun for 4 quarters is an absolutely awesome idea. At the same time, Devon Achane was getting, I think he got a reception with about a minute left in the game. He was still involved. Who do you think really becomes that featured pack? Will Miami use one? Do you think it's a scenario where Jeff Wilson is kind of like that closer on offense? That's that guy who can just come in and pound the rock? Or is he going to take over as the starter and it's maybe a little more of an uphill battle for Jalen Wright until he gets his professional legs under him? I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I think it probably will be more they lean on Jeff Wilson, whether it be because of his familiarity with this offense. We saw it last week, him coming in late in the game. I liked honestly having a Jeff Wilson to pound that rock late in the game. I thought it was actually a pretty good idea, but like we find out, Mostert was banged up, Achane was banged out. So
Yeah.
I think with Achane and Mostert being those guys that are normally on the field, I think you kind of just switch Mostert with Jeff Wilson, and maybe you continue to use Devon Achane the same exact way as before, but. Maybe they want to get him more involved as an RB1, so to speak, and they do give him some of those inside touches and things like that. But then with the injury, that doesn't seem smart. So I think it might be more of a Jeff Wilson show, but I'd be okay if they just let Jalen Wright leapfrog over everyone, right, and just give him the start. Let's see what he can do.
I kind of like keeping Jeff Wilson in that jack of all trades type role because we've seen the games, Josh, where he'll get 4 or 5 targets, and we have to deal with that. We have to accept the fact that Wilson's going to get that. So I kind of have a little bit of a feeling. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jalen Wright kind of step in as maybe that quote unquote main back while Devon Achane gets his packages. Jeff Wilson kind of takes over as that third down back while the simple running plays let Jalen Wright run. I could see that being an opportunity for the Miami Dolphins. To kind of finish out this injury report here, Elijah Campbell was added. He was limited on Wednesday. He is questionable with an Achilles injury. Josh, I want to ask you this because Elijah Campbell, a lot of players in that secondary, specifically Jordan Poyer, Soren Neal, are former members of the Buffalo Bill. One of the biggest talking points at the end of the preseason was we all hate Mike White for signing with the Buffalo Bills. Do we still hate Mike White? Do the Buffalo Bills have a competitive advantage by having Miami's former quarterback 3 on the roster?
I don't think so. I think Tua even kind of joked, like, he's not in the huddle with us. He doesn't know what's going to, happen. But at the same time, I think they're kind of underplaying how important it is, right? Whether or not you want him to go and share your secrets is one thing, but you definitely didn't want him to go to the Buffalo Bills and, just regurgitate stuff out of his mouth. So not an ideal situation, but I'm not going to sit here and say that they have a plan for the Dolphins. And let's be honest, Mike McDaniel should have an antidote for whatever Sean McDermott's throwing their way. So I'm excited for this early matchup. Dolphins are wearing their throwbacks. We didn't even touch on that. I don't know if we would have. I would have probably forgot, but that makes it all the more worth it to hopefully go up, beat the hell out of the Buffalo Bills. So I think I spiraled there, Jake, a little bit.
To kind of speak on that, Josh, everybody wants those throwback uniforms to be like the weekly uniforms. Dude, I love the special aura. Like the retro uniforms, the throwback uniforms have such a special aura where, dude, I love them being the prime time. I don't think they're too great to be your every Sunday clothes. This is the fine china, and I'm so cool with them being the alternatives. Do you kind of feel that way, or would you wish they'd go back to this full time?
Yeah, I mean, the more hearing you say that and hearing, like, I would not want to get rid of the jersey, uniforms they have now. Like, the all whites look pretty sick, right? The Stormtrooper
Agreed.
look, I mean, it's not awful. So I would like to see that continue in the rotation. I do think it's nice to have, okay, we're playing prime time against the Bills. We're going to wear our aqua throwbacks. So yeah, I think I like it the way it is. Stephen Ross, though, I think he is fine and content with making all that extra money on those throwback games.
And people are always going to buy it too. That's the thing, right? Everyone is always going to buy that merchandise. To kind of pivot here to some more positive injury news, Liam Eichenberg showed up on the injury report. He was limited Monday and Tuesday with a shoulder injury. However, he was upgraded to a full participant on Wednesday. And Josh, Jalen Ramsey, limited on Monday and Tuesday with his hamstring injury. He was upgraded to full on Wednesday. Once the NFL season begins, I think it's important to remember, I don't think we can guarantee injuries go away as much as they're managed, right? The idea that Jalen Ramsey's hamstring is all the way healed as he's sitting out there running from sideline to sideline on 4th and 1, there ain't no chance. But to see that he's fully upgraded, to see that he's a full participant, Josh, that feels pretty good to have CB1 fully in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. We're probably going to see this all season long, like you mentioned. We might always see him there with the hamstring. We might always see those vet rest days. You had written down he played 77% of snaps last week, and that was with them saying he was going to be on a snap count, right? So it's kind of funny how a snap count works for Jalen Ramsey. So happy he's back. But like you said, that hamstring might be on the injury report every week between now and the Super Bowl run we make.
Real quick, Josh, on the defense, how did you feel about the usage of those guys kind of returning to action? You mentioned it, Jalen Ramsey playing 77% of snaps. Jalen Phillips coming off his Achilles injury. He played 64% of snaps. He was called the closer. He was called the Mariano Rivera of the Miami Dolphins. I thought that was the sickest thing ever. Had that huge sack near the end of the game. Do you think the Miami Dolphins and Anthony Weaver did a really good job managing these injuries their first game back?
Yeah, no, I really do think they did a good job of getting them acclimated, and they did still make plays. Like you said, that Mariano Rivera. I mean, I'm not a big baseball guy, but when I heard that, I was like, oh, hell yeah, that's so sick. So maybe we'll see the closer get more than 64% of snaps. But I do think I was pleased with the way the defense looked, right? In week 1, I sat here and I posted a picture of Christian Wilkins because he took on 4 guys in a play, and it completely blew it up in the backfield. And I posted the crying frog, and people are like, what do you want? They lost. They sucked. And I'm just like, it was just a way of saying I miss
play.
Like, yeah,
how dare you like football?
Half the offense, yeah. So I'm liking what the defense at least showed in that first week. Excited to see what they can do against the Buffalo Bills, who, Jacksonville was a good team, but the Bills, how many years now, Jake, have they been Super Bowl contenders, right?
Josh, I have a couple stats here. I have a couple sad stats here. Quarterback Josh Allen has been selected as the AFC Player of the Week 5 times after facing the Dolphins. He's 11-2 all-time against Miami with 41 touchdowns. Buffalo has averaged 31.7 points against Miami since Sean McDermott's first season at the helm in 2017. Josh, I just see the dread just blanketing over your face. Not to go full Pepe Sylvia here, but something that I thought was pretty interesting, Josh, was the usage of Storm Duck. And if you're not following Take It to the Houtz on YouTube, if you're not following HOUTZ on Twitter, on X, whatever you want to call it, Josh, could you find any sort of rhyme or reason to when someone like Ramsey came off the field? Because I instantly look at Storm Duck. We saw Storm Duck get 15% of snaps. He was used in the red zone. To go full Pepe Sylvia, this felt like a great opportunity for the Dolphins to get some other players comfortable. The Buffalo Bills are a team that loves to spread it out. We'll talk about it more later. But it kind of felt like they were integrating Storm Duck a little bit into the defense, where if the Dolphins have to go into a dime look, have a few more extra cornerbacks on the field, your first live action wouldn't be against Josh Allen. I kind of feel like that was the scenario Miami was going for. What are your thoughts?
I love that you brought that up, and it kind of ties into what you just said a little bit ago, right? With the the snap counts with Phillips and Campbell and Ramsey and different guys like that. So I'm here for it. I like the way they're utilizing things and fine tweaking it. I want to know if they showed all their wrinkles, right? We know Anthony Weaver has all sorts of things up his sleeve. We know that Jaelan Ramsey was considered the solar system there with that defense in LA. So is he going to move around? Are they going to utilize Storm Duck more? I'm here to find out. Because if Storm Duck can step up, an undrafted guy like that, you get Ethan Bonner playing, that secondary looks pretty damn strong. And it's only week 2, so I shouldn't knock on wood.
Tyreek Hill was detained before Sunday's game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and news is continuing to pour out about that. Here is an update from Jeff Darlington. Per sources, Tyreek Hill received 2 citations as a result of the traffic stop Sunday: careless driving and a seatbelt violation. Calais Campbell, who said after the game, police told him briefly, placed him in handcuffs for disobeying a direct order, did not end up receiving a citation. The Miami-Dade Police Department told me this morning, Josh, I think this morning being Tuesday, that it remains in internal investigation, so they cannot yet provide the details into what led to the citation for careless driving or why Hill was detained face down on the ground in handcuffs. Josh, the video was also released from this incident, and man, it's just scary situations to be in. You could tell Tyreek Hill was very scared. You could see his demeanor change. You could even hear his voice change, reach a different level. Very scary scenario, Josh, and one that we're going to continue to hear about for the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, very unfortunate thing that happened. It sounds like, Tyreek Hill, I think he was calling for the cop to be fired and things like that. But I just hope that it sounds like he's taking a positive out of this, right? And he's trying to shed some light on his situation. He said, what if I wasn't Tyreek Hill? What could have happened? So lots of things going on that, we don't quite understand in this world. And we just hope that, we can all come together.
Think about any inconvenience you have in Josh. Think about when someone like maybe cuts you off when you're driving, the anxiety, the instant reaction to MF someone, and then think about how quickly or how long it takes you to calm down and kind of align yourself. The fact the Dolphins 2 hours later had a game and you had Tyreek out there playing ball, you had Calais Campbell, Walter Payton, man of the year, getting handcuffed. He was out there playing. Jonnu Smith was there trying to de-escalate things as well. I mean, we saw him kind of have a couple hiccups early in that first quarter. God, man, this is such a tough situation to go and play football right after, especially when you see your star player going through this. I think the Dolphins, Mike McDaniel, the coaches, all the players for having Tyreek's back deserve a bunch of credit, Josh, because that was very impressive that they were able to come out. Obviously, offense stalled in the first half. There are people saying week 1 is kind of that 4th preseason game. The fact the team could come together, the fact the coaches could kind of have them ready to play, man, that's impressive as all hell. And I think that's something we can't overlook.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill had a massive game. All those other guys did as well. And it's, again, like you said, just testament to them being professionals and just how they could all rally together, right? It does seem like this team, I mean, we've covered the Dolphins for what? We've been fans for 30 years. We covered this team for 10 plus years. I mean, it seems like this Dolphins team is a legit family, a brotherhood. And it was nice to see the players, have Tyreek's back in such an unfortunate situation. So definitely that's all people have been talking about. I think Tyreek Hill is ready to move on. He sounds like he's ready to face Buffalo and to absolutely torch that secondary like, we remember in years past.
I think right there we'll just take a little break. I wrote it down as a stamp. Sorry, I thought that'd be a good spot for it.
No, good stuff. that was like that Deshaun Watson situation where we used to like try to say stuff and feel like we were saying the wrong thing. So I'll cut up my thing if I had to. Nothing came out right.
Oh, it's
I was
all
like,
good.
oh, it's gonna be so fun to say it, like, and then nothing.
That's why I took it as the coaching staff direction. Because, dude, it's so fun. Tyreek could have kept his window down, and I completely understand rolling it up because, like, yeah, no, we don't.
Right.
All right. So, all right, let's jump on in. Josh, as I was getting ready to prepare for this game, preparing for the Buffalo Bills, I woke up. It's a Tuesday morning, sleepies in my eyes, and I logged on to Pro Football Focus just to get an idea of where the Dolphins stand. Maybe there's any weaknesses they can take advantage against the Buffalo Bills. And we're talking about Saran Neal used to play for the Bills. Jordan Poyer used to play for the Bills. Oh no, Mike White is now with the Buffalo Bills. Mapletron's with the Buffalo Bills. Josh, Danny Crossman, Miami Dolphins special teams coordinator, used to be special teams coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. And after the first week of the regular season, Miami has the 4th ranked special teams unit in the NFL according to Pro Football Focus. So I wanted to get your thoughts on what you saw from this unit last Sunday. And is this a scenario where, when you're talking about the 3 phases of football, could special teams maybe for once be an advantage for the Miami Dolphins?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting a little bit carried away. It's just 1 week, right? But I mean, the fact that, and I don't even know, like, the special teams, like, is he coaching Jason Sanders to kick a football? I mean, like, you don't even know what their job description is. So I'm liking what we saw them in the first week. Obviously, that Jason Sanders shank, we won't need to talk about that, but he drilled the game winner. We saw, a couple nice punts, right, from Jake Bailey. I don't know if it's because he had someone camping out during training camp all off season long, if he's playing better or what it is, but he had a couple coffin punts and looked like a different punter. Is that something to say? And so I'm intrigued by it. I'm intrigued, and I do think that these special teams obviously can switch the field in a game against division rivals, or you might have to call in a Jason Sanders game winner like we've seen in years past. So definitely nice to have a special teams unit that's not necessarily a negative or a bad unit, but at the same time, they're playing the Bills, and I don't know how much we're going to see punting or anything like that, because that's just the way these two teams roll.
But that's also part of the charm, isn't it, Josh? I think it's important to consider that week 18 primetime matchup between the Dolphins and Bills last year. What really turned the turntables, was that Deontay Hardy had a 96-yard punt return early in the 4th quarter. That, Josh, is the play that sticks with me the most. Yes, the Bills took the lead for good at the 7-minute mark with Dawson Knox and a 5-yard touchdown pass from Josh Allen, but that was the momentum changer. And it's so hard not to think about in a short week under the bright lights at Hard Rock Stadium, the fact that Jake Bailey has the confidence of a couple coffin corners, the fact that Jason Sanders can absolutely go out there and limp and miss a field goal and then hit 2 others right after that. Elijah Campbell, man, the momentum almost threw out the window where right after the Tyreek Hill touchdown, the following kickoff, Elijah Campbell popped the ball free. I thought Miami was going to land on it, but they did not. This, I think, am I getting a little too dramatic that saying that this could be the difference maker, just that one special teams play, whether it's turning it into a possession game inside the 5-yard line or being able to take one to the house like Deontay Hardy did? I think that could be a difference maker, despite the fact both of these offenses are so damn fun to watch.
I love it. And then you even have the return game, right? The different factors the Dolphins can use in the return game. We need to break one of those off at some point. So yeah, and last week I believe the Bills did also take back a long punt. I wish I had it written down. I was watching the replay of the game, and there was a big gain that they took one to the house. Or
was it the Cardinals? The Cardinals took one to the house against the Buffalo Bills.
It was the Cardinals that took it out. Okay.
Yeah, man.
Oh, it was DJ Dallas scored.
I don't know, man. I think Miami could take some advantage of some special teams issues here. I think that's a real opportunity for Miami. And Mike McDaniel even said it. He said after that Jacksonville game, he didn't think this was a team or a roster that could have won that game against Jacksonville each of the last 2 years. And he was talking specifically about special teams. So that, dude, I am going to watch special teams so much more this week. And we've done so many podcasts throughout the years, just kind of sleeping through it. But I think with the change in the kickoff, yes, there are still so many kick through the end zone, man. I think there's just opportunity here. There's some adversity here, and those are Mike Daniel's favorite words.
Adverse city. That's where we're at now.
And I will admit, Josh, a lot of this is blowing smoke. The key here, the key to beating the Buffalo Bills, you got to get the best of Josh Allen. you have to be able to settle Josh Allen. Last week, they defeated the Arizona Cardinals with Allen completing 18 of 23 passes for 232 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was sacked twice, but he also ran the ball 9 times for 39 yards and 2 touchdowns. Josh, probably the biggest unicorn in the NFL, literally and metaphorically, is Josh Allen. Who do you see on that Dolphins defense being the one that you don't want to see chasing him from behind all the way downfield?
That I don't want to see chasing him from behind. Oh man, Jevon Holland. He'd be the last line of defense, right? I did not want to see. I was gonna say that Jevon Holland. I think he spotted a little bit in one of those games last season. He was kind of that guy that kept him in check. But dude, I am scared to death of Josh Allen. He's one of those guys that I know a lot of people pre-draft compared to Ryan Tannehill. And if Tannehill ever turned into this, man, we would probably be having a couple Lombardis or something like that. So Josh Allen is a freak with his arm, and I think what's even more scary is what he does this with his legs, and he does it every damn time to us. So he's the guy that we have to stop. He's the boogeyman. He's been our boogeyman since freaking Brady retired. We went from Brady to Josh Allen. That's just what we have as Dolphin fans.
Last week, Miami held the Jaguars to 2 for 10 on third downs. The Jaguars were 0 for 5 in the second half, including 3 3-and-outs and a 4-play turnover on downs. The only drive that they did have in the second half that resulted in anything, it was the fumble, ETN fumble by Jevon Holland. Sorry about that. So, Josh, what do you see? What did you see out of the Dolphins defense that really confused Jacksonville in the second half? And what do you think they could really do going against Buffalo to, again, you're not going to stop Josh Allen. You just want to slow him down. You want to be able to get a little bit of a lead so you can maybe take someone like James Cook out of the game, make them a little more one-dimensional.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the thing I like the way they were just showing different looks at him, right? We saw the pressure coming from different sides. We saw just an entirely different defense than what we were accustomed to from a year ago. They mixed up the man and zone, and that second half was just almost a perfect shutout, a perfect performance by Anthony Weaver and his staff. So for me, I'm sitting here thinking about how they're going to stop Josh Allen, how they're going to stop that offense, and it's going to start with those secondary, right? Jaelan Ramsey and Kendall Fuller, right? We hope that they can just clamp down, do their thing, but I don't know, man. Even without Stefon Diggs, that's still a scary receiving core.
The receiving core is so interesting to me, Josh, because Allen completed 18 passes. Nobody had more than 4 receptions, and that was rookie first-round receiver Keon Coleman. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I think he was a second-round receiver. My bad about that. 4 receptions for 51 yards. You had Khalil Shakir last week with 3 receptions for 42 yards and a touchdown. Running back James Cook, 3 receptions for 32 yards. Old friend Mac Holland, 2 receptions for 25 yards and a touchdown. And then you had guys like Dawson Knox, Martez Valdez-Scantling, Curtis Samuel, and Ray Davis getting in the mix. Josh, out of that group, who is public enemy number 1, would you say? Who is that? Obviously, there's no Stephon Diggs to go and take Kader Kohu's lunch money, but is there anyone there that you're a little spooked by?
Kincaid's always scared me a little bit. I feel like he's that kind of unicorn that, can play in the slot and just mismatch nightmare. I picture David Long on him or Jordan Brooks or something like that, and it could just be game over. So I start with Kincaid, and then we can joke about Mac Hollins tearing us up, which we don't even want to joke about that because then it'll happen. But Keon Coleman, he's a freak. He's an athlete that, they were pretty high on. I think he became pretty much, that de facto number 1 wide receiver as soon as Stefon Diggs left. So I want to see what he can do if he's as good as advertised. But again, he might be going against Jaelan Ramsey. Opposite side, we got Kendall Fuller over there. The Dolphins have a good secondary, and I think they match up a lot better this season than they did when they had Stefon Diggs, Gabe Davis, who just always seems to get his on us. I mean, I like this matchup a lot more as we're sitting here talking through it.
I think I don't want to be too much of a homer reacting here. I think the addition of Jordan Brooks, I think a healthy Jevon Holland, man, the center, the middle of this defense looks oh so different. Last week, Evan Ingram had 1 reception on 4 targets for 5 total yards. Jevon Holland had a couple impressive pass breakups. Travis Etienne, 2 receptions for 15 yards on 3 targets. What I thought was really impressive is you saw someone like Jordan Brooks already tackling receivers as they were catching the football. It wasn't, trying to catch up to them. It wasn't us trying to justify Jerome Baker like, hey, he's not letting him get the extra yak, but he's going to have to go a couple yards to go catch someone. These are guys making contact almost instantly. Do you feel a little better about the middle of this defense compared to years past where it seemed like that'd be where Miami would get torched? It'd be one of those 3rd and 7 situations, and then, oh boy, there's your slot receiver running wide open all over the middle.
Yeah, I feel a lot better. And I think I posted a video of David Long, some of his the way he plays and the way he gets in there and run the game, and the way he stops them, it's just unbelievable the way he shoots those gaps and things like that. But you see him dropping back in coverage as well. So this is definitely the most confidence I've had in the Dolphins, middle group since, Carlos Dansby and Kevin Burnett, like we said, for a long time. So I hope to see Channing Tindall get a little bit more involved, but that seems like it's just a Houtz pipe dream. It's never going to happen. So much better unit in the middle than we had in years prior. And we're going to see this is going to be that huge test, right? You've written down James Cook's a monster as well. I mean, we all remember we thought the Dolphins were going to draft him. He looks so sad going to Buffalo.
19 carries for 71 yards last week. Yeah, man, I think James Cook's going to be a real difference maker for this Buffalo Bills team. He's a little frustrating to have in fantasy, but man, David Long Jr., I was a little nervous last week because it looked like he got shooken up on a play late in the game. I think he had maybe a messed up finger or something that had him a little uncomfortable, but he stayed in the game. I think he was listed on the injury report with a finger injury, but he was full all week. So that's something we don't have to worry too much about. Josh, last week, David Long Jr. led the team with 8 tackles, 7 of them being solo. Jordan Poyer and Kendall Fuller each had 6 tackles. Who do you need to see as that leading tackler? Or maybe you want to see someone with a couple sacks that could really indicate the direction of this game, especially going in Miami's favor?
I kind of like the David Long. I think that's a good testament. If David Long's, your leading tackler, I was going to say maybe Jevon Holland, because to me, he still seems like he's that X factor. I mean, we saw it last week in punching that ball out, but you mentioned him breaking up passes against Evan Ingram. I'm sitting here talking about how, impactful Kincaid might be. We've seen Knox in the past being impactful. You might need Jevon Holland to step up again and, play coverage. So I want to say it's Jevon. I wanted to say it's David Long, but I think I'm going to say Jevon Holland.
We've seen this pass rush just a little bit, Josh, and obviously it's only going to get better as the season goes on. Chop Robinson's going to get better. Bradley Chubb's going to come back. Josh Allen was kind of in charge of everything last week. I think he was sacked twice, but that offensive line in Buffalo, man, is always so impressive. I was so jealous watching, week 18 last week, and they're like, yeah, here comes Buffalo's same starting offensive line for the 17th straight game, which was absolutely mind-boggling to me. How do you feel Miami matches up in the trenches? Do you think that they have enough where we could see another Jaelan Phillips closing time?
We can always see another Jaelan Phillips closing time, and I think I got to give more credit to Emmanuel Ogbah for how well he played. So
Yes,
I like the way they match up, and at the same time, I'm a little bit frightful of how the Dolphins match up. Right, their offensive line taking on that very good defensive unit of the Buffalo Bills. Greg Rousseau, I think, had a couple sacks last week. They had playmakers all over there, so I think, as cliche as it sounds, every game's going to be won or lost in the trenches, but I do like the way the Dolphins, with all their different weapons, all the different looks they can throw at them, Calais Campbell, the way he can line up all over the place, Jaelan Phillips looking like an absolute monster. I think that we match up very well. This might be the best matchup we've had against this team as far as, on paper, for 1v1. I think Dolphins look pretty good.
Is it greedy to ask for 2 turnovers against the Buffalo Bills? Josh Allen, obviously, he's doing so much. There's so much volume where he does fumble. He does turn the ball over, does throw a couple of interceptions. I think that would be Miami's best bet.
Yeah, and while we're at, let's just say it's going to be Jordan Poyer, right? Like 2 picks or something. Jordan Poyer revenge game. Let's see it. But yeah, you're right. If you're going to beat the Bills, you need to get some turnovers. Just won't happen elsewhere. What were you going to say?
I was going to say Poyer was inches away from one last week, too. So that's what I think this Dolphins defense is really going to be. Weirdly, Josh, I kind of see it like the Brian Flores teams, not like the throw the kitchen sink at everyone, but the idea of maybe every snap, they're not going to be the stoutest unit in the world. I mean, Calais Campbell's 38, Jordan Poyer's got a lot of tread on the tires, but they're still playmakers. Calais Campbell can still go out first play of the game and get a 14-yard sack. So I think why they match up so well against the Buffalo Bills. They have some guys that can just knock down different schemes, different plans. And while it might look a little rough at times, like we saw Miami trailing by 14 points in the first half, trailing by 10 by the end of the first half, they got the playmakers on defense to turn the tables. And I hate that I'm saying that again, man, but I think that's where Anthony Weaver's defense is really going to thrive, especially early in the season.
And this is where we're going to probably see the huge difference between a Weaver defense and what we saw last year with Vic Fangio, right? I mean, and this is what you got to do. This is what Mike McDaniel, the Dolphins, this is what you have to do. You have to be able to beat your division rivals, especially the Buffalo Bills. So I'm hoping that we see an Anthony Weaver, masterclass. This is, starts getting head coach. His name's, we're seeing articles written about how he's going to be the next head coach for teams and things like that because of how well he shuts down that Bills offense, because Josh Allen's an anomaly.
Would I just be sipping haterade or being salty? If the Dolphins win, we can just obviously blame Jerome Baker, Christian Wilkins, and Xavier Howard for Miami's past struggles against Buffalo, obviously, right? sums it up.
Yeah, and Mike White, he was on the team too. We just shit on him whenever you get a chance now because he Benedict Arnold.
Before we wrap up, Josh, I wanted to get your thoughts about the game script because there are two games I think about when looking at the Buffalo Bills versus the Miami Dolphins. I think about the Week 18, just back and forth, just trying to get some yards, not trying to make that game-losing mistake. And then I think about, Week 3, where Miami went to Buffalo. No, Week 4, they went to Buffalo. They were 3-0, and Buffalo was just unstoppable. Stephon Diggs was unstoppable, and Miami kind of kept up with them by Devon Achane going nuclear in the first half. Miami ended up losing the game 48-20. Do you see this being the type of game where you need someone to go absolutely insane? You need a superhero receiver, or is this going to be another scenario where, like last week, Josh, Tua, everything didn't look great at times. It was dinking and dunking, but when you're dinking and dunking, you're not necessarily turning the ball over.
Yeah, and those dink and dunks led to those huge plays in, right? Jalen Waddle,
Exactly.
the bend don't break type of thing. Like defense can only hold him in check for so long. But for me, I think you do need someone to go nuclear, in the perfect sense, whether it's Devon Achane. I wish we knew for certain if he was playing. It does seem like he's leaning towards playing. So yeah, Devon Achane's that guy. He's that X factor. He's the one that, if he goes out there and catches another 7 targets, maybe is more impactful in those 10 rushes, that could be the difference in a game like this. But at the same time, those turnovers are ever so important. That's all I'm going to be thinking about now, Jake, is Jordan Poyer getting an interception or a forced fumble or something. And those are the things that change the game. So yeah, someone needs to go nuclear because if they don't, right, as we've seen in the past, we just don't have enough for the Bills, or do we?
Devon Achane lined up as a wide receiver for 15 of his 37 snaps in Week 1. 11 of those came in the slot. He caught all 7 of his targets for 76 yards and 4 missed tackles on those plays. That's from PFF's Ryan Smith. He also had 10 carries for 24 yards. Yeah, man, just thinking about this game, I do think they'll need someone to really step up and be that guy offensively to help them move the football. Let's get into it. Let's get into our game predictions. Josh, this spread has jumped a little bit. I had it here. I'm sorry. I think it started at 1.5. I think Miami is now favored by 2.5. How should you be feeling about Thursday night's matchup? And I don't even have to ask. I think we're both just a little queasy.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna say. You know me way too well. It's just because it's a game against the Buffalo Bills, and also because it's on primetime. We're gonna be sitting around all day waiting. Everyone's gonna be watching the Dolphins play on primetime, and what happens every damn time? It's always the same story. So until I see with my own 2 eyes the Dolphins putting the beat down on the Bills on primetime, tomorrow, for instance, then I will sit there and I'll believe the Dolphins can just run the table, just beat the hell out of the Bills whenever they can. But until then, man, I am definitely queasy. With that said, I don't think we ever pick against the Dolphins. At least we try not to. So I'm not going to do it now. 24-23 Dolphins. That's my prediction. I think Tua Tagovailoa, 2 touchdowns and interception. I do think Achane, though, is that difference maker, like you said. And Tyreek Hill. I think maybe Jalen Waddle becomes that the big time receiver this week, and Tyreek Hill takes more of a back step.
I could see that happen. And I would love to see a mess. I would love a massive Jalen Waddle game. And, man, something to keep in mind, too, the Buffalo Bills pass rush continues to be absolutely no joke. In Week 1, Greg Rousseau, 3 sacks, Von Miller, 1 sack. So it's going to be another scenario, man, where if Miami is forced to dink and dunk, they have no issue doing it. And that's probably one of the things that annoyed me most as we wrap up here about just kind of the reaction to Week 1. Tua led the NFL with 338 receiving yards. Matthew Stafford, I think, also cracked 300, but otherwise it was mostly the Tua show as terms of passers. And everyone instantly wants to go, yeah, but it was all dinking and dunking, and then it was 2 big plays. Why does that have to be the bad way to look at things? When you're paying Jalen Waddle $30 million, when you're paying Tyreek Hill as much as you're paying Tyreek Hill, isn't it for those 2 game-breaking plays per game? And isn't it because you can move the ball with these dink and dunk type plays where you're not turning the ball over? I think it is so crazy for people to use that as a negative instead of, maybe our quarterback should have done this too, and we would have been able to move the ball a little bit better. Yes, Miami didn't kind of blow up the board in terms of scoring points, but in terms of game script, in terms of moving the football, especially in the second half where there was at least 3 different scoring drives, including the shanked field goal. I don't think we can discredit the dinking and dunking, especially when you have guys and you're paying guys who can take those to the house. That's how you're supposed to be doing it. And it's just weird to me that people see that as a negative when, like, instead you should be looking at it and be like, if they had success doing that, maybe they're doing something right.
Yeah, and I mean, if you don't want them to do that, play press on them, right? Try to come up to the line and bump them, and you'll pay in a different way. So that's what I think is so great about Dolphins offense. I have no issue with you don't get style points. This isn't NFL Street. It doesn't matter if you're just throwing these screens all game long. If that's what they're giving you, let your guys pick up that yak. It's just funny how as soon as Tua got Tyreek Hill, right, that was going to be the narrative. Everyone was going to blame Yak. He really didn't get a lot of yak those first few seasons. Game one, man, it was just yak, 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 and I have no issue with that. If that's what it takes to beat Josh Allen, so be it. Did you give a score?
I really want to give like a 2-score game where the Dolphins do get a little bit of breathing room. But Josh, you already are looking like that's the first take I've ever said where you were like, dude, no, like, what are you doing? Like, that is the worst.
I was just like, better. 2 touchdowns. I don't even know if I could. 2 scores, you said, though. 10 points? I could see.
Yeah,
maybe.
I could see maybe like Miami getting off to like a 10-point lead. Buffalo's forced to go a little crazy. Josh Allen, maybe a couple fumbles from there, and it ends up looking a little closer than it should. I could see Miami doing that, but it won't. Even though it's a short week, even though Buffalo is coming to Miami, this is a team that's been way too good against the Miami Dolphins. The over and unders at 50. And you had what, Josh?
I think I said 24-23. Yeah,
So you're
that's what I've written
right
down. So I'm going to hope that that's what I said with my mouth.
Interesting, man. On the short week, I like it. I'm going to go. Let's go 24-17 Dolphins. Let's have a nice long bye week. Let's enjoy this game, Josh. I hope we can come back here and talk about a win. Before we wrap up here, I just want to give everyone a huge thank you. If I sound a little nasally, we're all kind of dealing with a little bit of a down with the sickness here, especially with the short week. We haven't had enough time to kind of give you guys a couple more podcasts. So thank you for bearing with us. I'm going on a little trip, so Josh and Kat will be back on this feed with a reaction to Thursday Night Football. You should see that sometime on Friday. If not, you will see it on Saturday. Thank you all so much for bearing with us. If you're liking what you're listening to, please hit that subscribe button. You can find this on Spotify, iTunes, 560 WQAM on YouTube. If you want to join the conversation, if you want to yell at us, Another Dolphins Podcast at gmail.com. Joshua, I'm going on a little rant here. You got any final words here before we wrap up?
No, man, that was perfect. I just want to say, like always, without you, there is no us. So thanks for always tuning in. Thanks for listening to us. And hopefully we have another victory to talk about.
Fins up.
Fins up.